Down a little bit here. There we go. That's better. Yeah, we're live. Ta-da! Look what's up on the dyno. And although it doesn't run yet, it's actually up on the dyno. It's kind of still hanging on the hoist. Actually, it's set down. I'm getting lots of stuff hooked up. What I did today, I'm doing a video on. We actually flowed. Can you guys hear it? No, there's no audio. I might have to start over. Dang it. Come on. Hello, hello. Can you guys hear the audio now? No audio? You might have a... You can? Ah, yay! Okay, we have a Dodge Magnum 360. I don't know what year this is. I don't even remember. It's been sitting around for a while. It is a Magnum. It's a 360. It's got the beer keg on it. Got the throttle body on it. Whoa, 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 whoa. So I did a lot. I had to do a lot of things. Actually, I've been working on this thing all day trying to get it running. I took all the injectors out. We took them all over to the ASNU machine. We did a cleaning on them and then flow tested them, and they're all actually very nice. I was surprised given how dirty they were and everything was when I took it apart. And the thing that amazes me, and I'm sure you guys have seen this too, is that, you know, this thing's probably been sitting forever. But when you, and it's been sitting for a long time here with the fuel rail disconnected, you know, with the line open. Every time I take injectors out of there, I spill fuel on myself. So it seems like fuel lasts an eternity in a fuel rail and only wants to come out when it can attack me somehow. But we took all the injectors out, we flowed them on the machine, and they're all very balanced. I was very, very happy. So we know at the stock power level, and I think that these were about 27-pound injectors when we flowed it. Which is more than enough for what we're doing here because it's all stock. What I'll do first probably is we'll run some headers on it and see, you know, kind of see what's going on. I just want to, right now, I don't even know if the motor's good. We know a couple things. So I did a leak down on it, and the leak down was, you know, okay. Not great, not ideal. But it does have good oil pressure because we put oil in it, put a new filter in it, and spun the thing around. And it does have good oil pressure when we're trying to start it. Right now, I'm hooking up the Hei HP. We've got an MSD distributor on it. I'm trying to get it to fire, and I have yet been unsuccessful. I think what I need is another jumper for the ignition portion of the universal harness that we have for the Hei. I think Eric and Dish will probably come and get that sorted tomorrow morning if I don't get it tonight. A couple of other things I'm going to have to do. You can kind of see down here. I can take you guys over there because we have a remote camera. So this right here, what do you think? Do you think that'd be restrictive? Look at that. That's totally fine, right? That's totally good. The other side doesn't even really have one on it, so I've got to do another exhaust. We've got the stock manifolds on it, so we'll run exhaust, you know, back here. And then I've obviously got to put, are there no O2 sensor buttons in this thing? No, not in this section. And there's definitely not one in the other one either. So we'll have to put an O2 sensor in there. We've got our drive-by cable throttle body hooked up. Got our map sensor. So we've flowed and cleaned all the injectors. We're just going to run cold water through this one because I don't have the water pump hooked up. So to get things started, I still have to close a couple of these. But what I did was when I was outside with this thing, it looks like it's had some kind of leak, obviously. What I did already was when I had this thing outside, we just cleaned out all the rust and stuff from inside because we don't want that getting into dyno water. So we flushed that stuff really good. Let's see this other side over here. So we're having to do stuff like this, block off these hoses, and we'll have to seal that off. This will be one of the radiator hoses, and this will be the other one. I mean, you know, I'm always hopeful. The other exhaust manifold over here. And then I'm going to put on, you see I got sections of pipe over there where we'll take exhaust and just run it out, you know, back to the dyno. And then what I'll do is I think we have a set of headers for this, and we'll run headers on this as well. But I kind of just want to see what the power curve is going to be. You know, first we want to fingers crossed that the thing's even going to run. So we want to make sure that it runs, and then once it does, then we can start doing a few tests on it. I thought I was going to be testing today, and I'm not going to be, so I'm going to have a limited amount of time that I'm able to do stuff. So we'll be able to run headers. You know, I'll try a few things. Probably nothing grand right now, but at least I know that we can get it running and get it working. I might do a carbureted version of this also, so we may do a carburetor versus EFI. We'll maybe have some of that testing, which will be good. The other thing, the update on the, let's see, factory speed. I have an Ellis question. You can ask any question on any subject right now. I'm going to answer all the questions. I try to get to all of them that I can as soon as I'm done with my dissertation. On the GLH Turbo, if you watched the live feed last night, so you can ask away if you have an Ellis question. Obviously, we'll always answer those. On the GLHS, I did a leak down on that, and there's not one, but 2 dead holes. And when I say dead, I don't mean they're leaking down at like 50%. I mean that they're leaking down at 100%. It doesn't take any pressure at all. So I haven't pulled the valve cover off to see if the valves are actually, you know, either stuck open or not opening, if the cam's bad or the lifters are bad, the rockers are bad, whatever it is. I haven't taken a look at that yet, so I want to, but I think obviously that motor's got to come out. So it will come out. I have those Y-scope pistons for it, so it does look like it's a common block. So, you know, we could do all the stuff to it. We could put head studs on it and good gaskets and surface it, and you know, I'm talking to people about ported heads and all that stuff. So we can, you know, we can do lots of stuff with that one. So that will be fun, but it is going to have to come out. It's not going to be an easy fix. I can't just pull the head off and take a piston out and put a new piston in it like I was kind of hoping to. The other option is, while I'm doing the 2.5, if I can find another local 2.2 or 2.5, just a bone stock one that's in good shape, even a long block or whatever, that I can buy from somebody or borrow or have or whatever, I can put that in the car while this one is out and just get it running and make it work so that it can be driven around and stuff, which would be ideal. I don't really want to put the little 2.2 the 84 in, because we're going to want to do engine dyno testing on that, and also it needs a few things that would stop it from just going right in that car. So if anybody has anything, if you have anything that's local to West Tech, let me know. So I'm gonna have to do that as well. So I'm hoping to run this tonight if I can get it running, but most likely we'll start on doing stuff with this tomorrow. And I only have 1 or 2 days this week coming up to do any testing, and then I've got to get back. So more elaborate testing on the 360 is going to have to wait, obviously. Let's see, got any extra sensors for what? For an LS, for a 2.2, for a Dodge? The Nova is, I haven't done anything with the Nova for a while. Do you have any opinion on the Titus Cleveland block? I'm not familiar with that. Factory speed, I bought an LQ9, I'm going to build it. What do I want to watch out for when bolting LS3 heads on? And is it possible to make 600 horsepower on these heads? Stock LS3 heads and 600 horsepower on a stock bottom end is going to be very difficult. If you take a look at the intake manifold test that I did, that'll give you a fairly good idea. We got right near 600 horsepower with aftermarket pistons, because they'll give you enough valve relief. We ran flat tops on it. They'll give you enough valve relief to run enough camshaft to get up near that. You can get near 600 with an LS3 head, but it takes a lot of camshaft, and it also takes, usually it takes some sort of short runner intake manifold to make power at a higher RPM. What are the runners like under the beer keg on the 360? I can, when we take it off, obviously I can take photos of it, but it's a long runner manifold, which is typical of all of the factory stuff. So the beer keg probably is more like a truck LS manifold. I like the Nova better than the Fox. The Nova is your best car. It's you haven't taken a close look at it, obviously. Is it much better? Is it much effort to adapt a classic Mopar carb intake to the more modern Magnum block? It's not hard at all because we have a Magnum 4-barrel intake manifold. So the Magnum 4-barrel intake manifold bolts right onto this, and then you just put a 4-barrel carburetor on it. How does a head with dual spark plugs affect turbo ignition timing? Like, you have to tell me what motor it is. If it's a Hemi, it doesn't affect it really at all. If it's a leading and trailing one, like rotary stuff, then it does affect it. The Omni will smoke all of your other cars. I've been welding my Nova floor pans all afternoon. This one has giant size holes in the floor. The whole floor pan needs to be replaced if I was going to do that. If I'm just going to put a motor in it and do burnouts, it obviously doesn't need that. Then we can bolt stop signs to it or whatever. But I kind of would like to do floor pans on it though. Are you going to reverse the pistons for another 500 horsepower? That would be a big gain. But this is the motor that I'd like to do it on. The GLH will run 10s. Every car I have can run 10s. Do you have a cam suggestion for that setup for 550 600? Take a look at the videos I have up on the LY6 testing that I did. I have a bunch up there. So I ran the comp 469 cam, which is getting up near the limit of available piston to valve clearance. I also ran the bigger Summit Pro LS cam. So any of those cams up in that range are going to be between 550 and, well, probably not on a 6-liter though. I think we made 575 or so with the but with the trick flow heads on it, with the trick flow cathedral part heads on it. I think we were more like 540 or 550 with an LS3 head on it. On a 6.2 with more compression, you can get closer to that. Why not do something crazy like a custom flat crank? Spin one of what? Spin one of these Magnums to the moon or one of the 2.2s? And the flat crank is not what's stopping that thing from either one of these motors from spinning to the moon. The crank has very little effect on that. Yes, a 3/4 race cam or 7/8 race cam would be mandatory. Maybe there's something to this. You know, obviously Uncle Tony and David Vizard swear by it, so maybe there's something to it. Like I said, I don't know. I've never tested it. I've never seen anybody run a back-to-back test on it, so I want to do that. Preston, I would just start out with low timing and then add it and see how it likes it. Factory speed anytime. Do you have an aftermarket head to try the 360? I don't yet, but we will. I would actually like to drive the Omni around. That would be perfect. The only thing is it would definitely have to have AC, so I'd have to get that working. Can 706 heads be welded in the spot that's always cracks by the head bolt hole? I don't know. I've never had that problem, and we've run lots of boosts with them, so I haven't seen that. Big Bang 360. We definitely need heads and cam and stuff for that. Yeah, I've seen Final Roman. I've seen the excerpts from the Mopar Speed Secrets thing where they're telling you to do that. But again, I didn't see data where they showed, hey, look, this is what happened when we did it, and this is what happened when we didn't do it. There are two different 706 castings. There's the cast deck heads, and one of them may be better than the other. I just know we weren't selected when we got them when we did the early Big Bang stuff. Both the 4.8 and the 5.3 both had 706 heads on it. The piston flip lane is the pin is offset on the piston. It's offset to one side or the other. I can't remember which way it's offset. And then when you flip it, you change the offset to the other side. So it's supposed to change the mechanical leverage and the loading and change the dwell time and, you know, all sorts of magic stuff. So we'll see what it does. So Tim, they were talking about it on 302 Fords as well, which the stock ones do have offset on them. I've been to a Arc de Triomphe. I've been to a Shelby track day. I went out there with my 5-liter Mustang and I had nitrous on it, and it was it was keeping up with it. Surprised a lot of Shelbys. Would there be a benefit to running E85 over Premium 93, 10.5 to 1 compression, iron-headed 400 Pontiac or 455 Olds? Maybe. You're right in the range where an iron-headed motor like that might be getting into detonation. Some of it's going to be dependent on your cam. I mean, on your camshaft. So it's going to change the dynamic compression, and so if you have more camshaft in it, it would be less likely to detonate. And also, I don't know how cool you run the water in it. If you're running it at 160, let's say you have a low temperature thermostat in it, it would be less likely to detonate. If you're running at 200, it's going to be more likely. Then in that case, then the 85 might be beneficial for you. Uncle Squirrel, no, we went through this already. No pineapple on pizza. I love pineapple, but just on the side. Shelby supercharged the Durango 5.9. What blower did they use in that? So Mike, you're going to try E85 on your 4.8 Express van, and if it's all stock, I don't know that you'll see much. Uh, 21's a little tight. I hope it's intercooled, and I hope it's on E85. I have used gapless rings, but not on a boosted application. Auto rotor 2.2 on the Shelby Durango. Okay. Yeah, if you can, there's lots of things that you can do. The combustion chambers, you can soften the chambers, you can polish them, you can change the shape of them, which is what softening the chambers does, and all those things will help. Like we used to on the Engine Master stuff, we would also polish the piston tops. Honestly, I don't have back-to-back data on whether or not that helped. Might have just made me feel better. Project Dirty, the L83 Gen 5, 5.3. We're getting ready to run one of those under boost with Brian Tooley. We're going to run a turbo on mine. I don't know what the stock ring gap is. We need to take it apart and look at it. But since we're going to do it, we're going to put ring gap in it anyway. You're an SRT4 owner. Can you do a Big Bang? I don't see too many of those. Yeah, this is the Magnum's on the dyno right now. The upgrades that you should do to your Explorer Ecoboost are programming. I did have somebody offer to sell me the bell housing, and so if you are out there and you did that, let me know. I have too many different sources for all the messages that I get, and so now I seem to have lost track of that. Any problem running a reverse rotation engine on the dyno? Yes. On the old dyno, we could do it on the 901. So I ran a bunch of Honda stuff back in the day on that. These are both 902s, so they have a directional vane impeller. So you cannot run reverse rotation stuff. But they have a power mark that they're probably going to be upgrading to sometime in the future. And on that one, we can. Hopefully, we're going to do a whole series on this 360. And on the Ecoboost mods, if you're going to, I don't know what the limit is on the fuel flow for those, but you would need to look into additional fuel like injectors and stuff, but also E85, which would also cause you to need more injector. But E85 and turbo stuff, that really goes well together. Colder plugs are not a bad idea. I really like cold air intakes on any application, especially on turbo stuff. Downpipe stuff can help. I've heard they have ring gap anywhere between 32 thousandths and 8 thousandths. That's a pretty big variation. The Mopar Speed Secrets book says 14 to 16 ring gap and don't exceed 22. I'm going to exceed 22 on mine because I'm going to go, unless that has a 3-inch bore, which I don't think it does. Part of the Omni has a shiny hood, but not all of it. I ran out of talent and enthusiasm and all kinds of stuff last night when I was doing that. And maybe you guys can let me know. One of the tricks I tried when I was doing that last night, I have a video that I'm doing on this as soon as I get the hood done, and I may have to resort to electronic apparatuses to get that done. But I also tried brake clean on it, and it took a lot of it off. The problem is, after doing that, it seemed to really super harden, like work harden what was there. So after I did that, then trying to take it off with my rubbing compound and polishing compound routine seemed to take an awful lot more effort. So Mike, do you think you can run a single fogger 175 shot on your 4.8 in the van for high 12s? What's the thing run right now? Tim, I wouldn't ever do that. I wouldn't swap the 2.4 SRT stuff onto this earlier block. I would just, if I was going to swap it, I'd just swap the whole motor in and build up that motor before I did it and just make that one work. Does the 2.3 Ecoboost need a catch can? I'm sure it doesn't have one from the factory because everything is going to be sealed. We like running them on the dyno. This is a Dodge Magnum 5.9 360. I was just looking at the Big Bang Gen 6 motor today. I still need to do a couple of things to it before I can run it, but I do want to run that. What about changing out the 2-bar map sensor for a 3-bar map sensor? If you're going to run more boost, but if you don't have the fuel for it, then that's not going to do you any good. Yeah, Mike, go out and run the van. Let me know what it runs. You got to do a baseline before you make mods, man. We did talk about the 360. It's up on the dyno, as you can see. It's right here. I haven't made any runs on it yet. I haven't even got it to start yet. Do you think a stock bottom end 5.9 could make it to 1,000 horsepower? I would honestly be surprised if it did, but there's no reason we can't try it. Yeah, Mike, a 6.0 with a 150 shot seems more like it. A 4.8 is going to be a couple of seconds behind a 6-liter. Do you have any experience running a stock LS3 or 6-liter block with a longer 4100 to 4125 stroke? Yeah, it's not a good idea with a stock sleeve length. I don't like running anything longer than 4-inch on the stock sleeve length. We've run 4250 stroke cranks and other things on when we sleeve the block, which we've done a number of times. I made a 468 out of a sleeve block, and then the sleeve length is longer, and then with those long strokes, the skirt doesn't come all the way down out of the bottom of the cylinder and create problems with ring seal and piston flutter and stuff. So I don't like running those big strokes on stock sleeves. Meguiar's, very few misses in their product line from what I've tried. This is probably going to take like an orbital polisher or something, I think, to get it off, because I have the hood and then I also have the roof to do, and it's more of a gee whiz thing. You know, it's more just more content for the channel, but because it really needs to be painted. So 3.44 bore times 721. So, you know, 23 or 24 probably is where the minimum that I would be. How big is the throttle body? Here, you can take a look. It's this big. It's a stock one. See? Whoop, 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 whoop. I haven't measured the throttle bores. Maybe somebody knows out there what the throttle bore size is. Okay, now I've made the camera unhappy. I don't know why it does that. Aaron, thank you very much. Richard, can you test a set of 92, 93 Magnum manifolds on versus the 94 up like you have? 92 to 93 have 2 1/8 collector versus the small ones on the 94. So what size are these? What size are these openings? I would be surprised at the stock power level if you saw much of a difference in power between those two, but maybe once you put a cam and things like that on, it would make more of a difference. Yeah, Jay, tune, cold air is good, and I think downpipe probably on that motor, those will probably help too. Still slow. Nitrous stock bottom N360 Magnum has surprised some people in my car. Always wanted to turbo it. How much turbo are you going to run? We'll run the GT45 as we always do, and then probably the VS Racing stuff, the 7875. This is a big enough motor for that, although we won't be taking advantage of what that turbo has to offer. Yeah, White, I agree. Trying to hand rub oxidized paint is kind of difficult. It worked fairly well to begin with, and then after I put the brake cleaner to it, it decided, okay, we're going to stay put now. Okay, the 5.9 has 2 48-millimeter bores. That's really pretty small. I'm told on these that one of the problems is the plate underneath these beer keg ones that tends to distort under boost. It's a lot of open, like unsupported surface area on the plate, so I can see why that would be a problem. Can Westech dyno with drive-by wire throttle bodies? Yes, they have those. They've run. We've run the Coyotes like that, and I think that they've also run some LS stuff and LT stuff like that. Yeah, the 2.2 and 2.5 are the same bore, I believe. I think that's just a stroke change. If the 5.9 makes 360 horsepower, at 300 kPa, it would make 369. It'd make 1,080 then, you know, in a perfect world. Yeah, the GT45 would be good for low speed stuff. Oh, Mike, I thought you were talking about this Magnum. The GT45 on your 4.8, that'll work good. I showed you guys dyno stuff on that. We've run 10s on the bottle with our Magnums. Are those must be cammed, and do they have decent heads on them or something? I don't know about the, I would think that the bore center on the Ecoboost 2.3 would be the same, but it's a different engine family though than the old SVO. Yeah, 12s would be really fast for a van. You're gonna have to hit the nitrous like off idle, I think, to really get it going. So is the Ecoboost, is it more like the Duratec motor, or is it another family, you know, change above that? This is a roller motor. What cams will we test? We will test, I think Comp has a few. We're going to run the beer keg for, you know, we're going to try it and see how it works. It's obviously going to be limiting. It's going to be limiting two ways. One, this throttle opening is not very good. So unless we make a bigger throttle opening, like physically open it up, the one in the manifold, not just the throttle body size, it'd be limited in that way. And then also the runner length and the flow rate of that manifold is probably going to be limiting as well. Okay, so it is the Duratec family. Jeremy, Richard, any thoughts on a 95 Mustang S trim supercharger, 10 pounds, T56, 275 Ford tires? What do you recommend picking for a rear gear, or should I leave it stock? There are lots of different T56s that have different gear sets in them. I don't know what your final drive is, and I don't know what you're trying to do with it. For me, I always had like lots of final drive because we were trying to do silver state stuff. I really didn't care what the quarter mile time was. We wanted them to go 200 or something. So we needed a lot of gearing. I never had a T56 in there. I have one now sitting in my shop that we're going to do something with. But I think that that's for an LS. Yeah, I think there are different cover plates underneath there. And if we have to, we obviously can make one or make supports for it. Cam and heads on a 150 shot. That makes sense. I mean, it is 360 inches, and it works just like every small block Chevy or 351 Ford. If you put good heads on it and a camshaft and a good intake, it does what a motor of this displacement is supposed to do. 373s in the Fox. That's a decent gear, as long as you have enough overdrive in the T56. And then match the camshaft to the overdrive. One of the things I found, I had the Extreme Energy 274 in my Mustang, but it was like 8.5 to 1 because we put Wiseco pistons in it back in the day, and it had I think a Cobra intake at the time, a ported Cobra one, and it had trick flow heads on it, and it had a Vortec on it. And then when we put lots of gear in it, we put 241s in it one time, and it wouldn't really drive in fifth gear because it didn't like running that low of an engine speed on the freeway unless we were going 90. Then it was happy. Bruce has a 360 Magnum with a 209 217. That should be a good one. Have a 268 and 274 cam. So you're keen to see what you get with the smaller cams. Yeah. I want to see you test the Big Bang Theory out. Put a 4-barrel Hei single plane, a solid roller cam headers, a 300 shot on it. Yeah, I didn't have a good experience with the last nitrous Big Bang, but that was all my fault. Even the 0.63 overdrive with a 26-inch tall tire is going to cruise at 22 to 2300 RPM. I like being there. As a matter of fact, if you have the right cam in it, even 2000 is fine for that. BMRZ is 3.78-inch bore spacing, chain-driven aluminum 4. Bore spacing, same bore spacing as the old Ford belt drive DBA engines. Yeah, Tom, that the Boosted Boys MR2, that thing's pretty impressive. I don't know how many kegger mods we'll do on the 360 because we don't have it in a car. The things that a lot of guys would be doing to make it. I mean, we can look at that and see. I think more guys doing a Magnum might be interested in doing other things, but we'll see. Joe, the problem with trying to run older intakes on this off those LA motors is that they can't. It's a Magnum head. I don't know if they're reversible or not. We'll have to find out. Have you ever blown up an engine on the dyno? Yeah, do a search for Big Bang and you'll see. Big Bang nitrous, Big Bang turbo, especially the Gen 3 6-liter. The other ones just broke; they didn't blow up. But the 6-liter, the Gen 4 or Gen 3 6-liter, you know, split the pan and made a mess and everything. And then I did a TV show with Chad Reynolds called The Wheel of Death, and we figured out ways to destroy the motors, and that was kind of fun. Yeah, Bruce, that 268 cam on that 360 build worked out pretty good. It made good power, but since I was driving the thing around, I was spending most of my time at 2000 RPM or 2500 RPM. The little cam was better. Andy, I think we looked at, I can't remember if we ran stock pistons in there. Would the Cleveland pistons work for the 400? I have a mostly stock S475 360 in a Volare wagon. Does it have the beer keg on it? What intake bin stuff is on it? Yeah, and you can get the LKQ, not LKQ, or Engine Quest heads that they sell for the replacement ones, because a lot of these Magnums, they get cracked. So the Engine Quest heads are a good upgrade, and then there's obviously aluminum versions too that we can run. Blue collar, we talked about this bore and stroke thing a lot, and for the kind of RPM and power ranges that I talk about and that I run most often, I don't think there'd be any change if you change the bore and stroke. As long as the compression stayed the same and the camshaft and all that stuff stayed the same, the displacement is the big thing, and the other two things are little things. You can, under some circumstances, like with Formula One or Pro Stock, or where you're running absolute RPM and stuff where you would want to take advantage of additional head flow, where a bigger bore would allow you to do that, then at an absolute level, you probably can. But juggling displacement on a motor like this is a waste of time. Are you testing the pull-through T1 throttle body on the T2 manifold for the 2.2 or 2.5? I can. I mean, we could get rid of the T2 throttle body and just put a coupler and then run the throttle body in front of it and do that on both manifolds. But we're going to definitely test the draw-through stuff and then obviously the blow-through stuff as well. Yeah, Aaron, that you can swap the heads, but then you make it a different motor. What I was saying is that you can't run the earlier manifolds on the later head. I forgot what year this thing is. When we pulled it out. You just want a 2.3 liter that doesn't have a limit. Every engine has a limit. And I've found that LA heads are a lot harder to find in the wrecking yard than these are. Although I still do see occasionally 318s and early 360s. Mike, what big block Ford are you talking about? Okay, Bruce, so yours has the Engine Quest heads, Chinese air gap, 600 Holley. Wow, that's a little one. 209, 217. Well, Bruce, take a look at you've seen that video and you've seen the comparison between the two cams. You just need to decide what power curve you like more. I know, somebody needs to find me the 429 Cobra Jet heads, although I think that I did score a source to allow me to borrow a set of closed chamber 291 big block Chevy heads, which means that I can do the following thing, and only you guys get to hear about it, all of my live feed people. I can do a comparison between a Stage 1 Buick 455 and an LS6 Chevelle 454. So that will be a good video series. Joel, I'm the wrong guy to ask about diesel stuff. The 630 horse 460 that we built, what happened to it? I think that's in one of the mud trucks. That was a long time ago. Scored a B&M supercharger for a 2.2 liter Chrysler. Very cool. Oh, our turbo flutter, is that surge then that he's talking about? Looking to turn my Gen 4 block 243 head truck intake 5.3 into a 5.7. There's our set you recommend. There's lots of stroker, or not stroker stuff. You're just going to do a bigger bore piston. So some guys will bore it out and put stock pistons in it, or you could do aftermarket pistons and rods, do like a 6125 rod, and then Wiseco and K1 and Summit has their Pro LS stuff. There's lots of good forging terms for that. Rob, you can still use a Stage 2 cam in that. Kyle, you shouldn't be sitting in a field, man. Got to get that thing running. Casey, I think a 268 on a 383, it might work with a stock converter. It depends on what stock is, but you know, in the 1800 to 20 or 2000 RPM range. It might be 2200 on it, because on the 383, the stall speed of the converter is going to go up anyway. Bruce, if you're just driving it around and things shifting at 5,000 or something like that, the 600 is probably fine. But on that motor, with a cam and those heads, I mean, the smallest one we would start out with would be a 650, and then I might try a 750. And then when we look at it on the dyno and go, hey, yeah, look, that was worth 10 horsepower. And then we take that 750 off and we would put a 650 back on it for it to drive around on the street. Will we run E85 on this? That would be a waste of time until we get boost on it. Ever going to do an alcohol Big Bang engine? So, like, what do you mean? Run one of these Big Bang motors on E85? Is that what you're talking about? Or like a top alcohol dragster motor? I like the 396 Chevelles. Love to see 500 horsepower out of the Magnum on boost. 500 horsepower from the Magnum with an Engine Quest head and a cam, I think would be very, very simple. I think it honestly would be more like 600. I was told that a lot of the 429 Super Cobra Jet stuff went to the tractor pulling guys, oddly enough. Can you put a blow-off valve on that thing, Joel? Yes, the Dodge Spirit RT had the same motor that the IROC Daytona had. So they had the 224 horsepower 4-valve Lotus headed 2.2. .318 hit 498 wheel horsepower on 15 pounds. See, that's right. I think that's right where it should be. I mean, that a 318 should be able to make 250 horsepower NA, so that's kind of right where we would expect. Yeah, Tom, up in those power levels, 2,500 horsepower, you shouldn't use a stock block, obviously. And even some of the aftermarket blocks, that's getting up into a level where they're not going to last for, you know, any length of time. Oh yeah, that reminds me, we have to get to our shirt giveaway. So here is the story, and then you guys get to answer a question about it. So this was way back in the day. It was a mechanic at a Corvette shop, and the guy that I was living with was also working at the shop, and he came back and said, yeah, these guys put a Paxton centrifugal supercharger on a Corvette, and the guy was telling him they turned it up so much that the car, you know, they were spinning it so fast that they had boost at idle. And I'm like, well, you can't have boost at idle because the throttle blade's closed and the blower is blowing against the closed throttle blade, so you don't have any boost at idle. He said, no, he does. He told me he's got boost at idle. I said, okay. So now here's my question. We know that there can't be boost at idle because the throttle blade's closed. But, and I'm going to pick from all of the people that answered this correctly. How is it that both of us in this case are actually right? So you can't have boosted idle and you can have boosted idle. How is that possible? So you guys go ahead and answer the question, and then I'll just pick somebody at random because I'm sure more than one person are going to get the answer to this. It was a diesel. See, everybody's getting it. And the most interesting thing is that the point kind of all this is that, you know, we were back in the day, I knew everything. I knew everything about Boost. Just ask me and I would have been happy to tell you. Obviously I didn't. And because when you're young, you know everything and you're an idiot. And you don't realize how much of an idiot you are until you get a little bit older and get a little bit more knowledge and understand the way things are. And so we argued back and forth about it for a long, long time. And the reality is, as we found out, that we were both right. And more importantly, it didn't, you know, we didn't have to fight about it. It didn't really matter. It wasn't that big of a deal. But everyone is putting up the right information. The fact is that when he was showing Boost at idle, he had his boost reference line for the boost gauge. He had it like next to the blower, between the blower and the throttle body. And because he also, and I'll see if somebody mentioned this. I don't see anybody that's mentioned it yet. Have you ever played with an FMU on a Boost application? Yeah, ask me why in my turbo or my Vortex supercharged Mustang that I ran at the Silver State, where I was at wide open throttle for 32 minutes straight with the fuel pressure gauge pegged at 100 PSI. That's FMU. One of the things, and everyone's kind of getting the idea here that he was taking his boost reading between the blower and the closed throttle body. The other thing he did wrong that would have helped things is that setup didn't have a blow-off valve on it. There was no blow-off valve between the blower and the throttle body, which would have alleviated that situation. Especially if he would have been taking the reading for it on the other side of the throttle. So there was no boost on the manifold or on the motor side of the throttle because the throttle was closed. So there's vacuum there, just like at idle, just like on every combination. That's normal. So that's why I like to take my boost readings in the manifold, because that's when the motor is getting boosted. He was taking the reading on the right coming out of the discharge side of the supercharger. A lot of guys like to take their on the turbo stuff, a lot of guys like to take their boost reference for their boost controllers and stuff there. I personally like to take it in the manifold. But he was taking it there, but they had no blow-off valve on it. So and this was early on. I'm guilty of that too. On my Vortex supercharged Mustang, I never had a blow-off valve on it. I don't think we ever put one on. We may have put one on way, way later when they finally went from if you guys remember, they had the roto-molded like plastic discharge tubes. And then they went to the aluminum ones because guys were running so much boost that what was happening is that they would get hot and we were distorting the elbows and stuff on those things. It would just blow them off. And you couldn't clamp them down enough because then you would just distort the plastic. So they went with the aluminum ones, and the aluminum ones actually had bypass valves on them or blow-off valves, depending on how you configured them. And so those things helped a lot. And then they also had, you know, kind of rolled edges on them too, so that when you clamped them, you could clamp on the other side of that and they would hold for more boost. And this is especially important for guys running, when guys are getting into running Renegade stuff and running 1,000,000 pounds of boost, just basically turning the blower up for all that it would do, all of it, all the time. So that's what happened. So I'm going to just pick somebody at random, and then the shirt that I'm going to send you is one of the Yellow Killer B shirts. I think I only have large or extra large, so you're going to get one of those. And Silver State Classic, my end game. It was a lot of fun. Well, Tom, at least you're drilling the intake valve and not the piston, right? Yeah, Dean, I've gone down through all of the Allpar stuff, mini Mopars, and all of those different sites. There's lots of good stuff there. Yeah, before the after cooler. Do fuel injector spacers work? Yeah, if you mean the adapters, yeah, you can. We do that all the time sometimes to run on different manifolds and stuff. George 50. Professionally ported Edelbrock heads on the 360. I've run the Edelbrock heads on an LA 360, and we compared them to a set of, I think that they were mildly ported stock heads back when I did that first test on my van motor. And the Edelbrock heads weren't really worth much. I talked to Dulcich about it, and he said, yeah, that's kind of what he's seen. Now, he's tuned up a set of Edelbrock heads, and he's pretty good at porting those because he has a lot of experience. And they make power after he's done with them. Yeah, Lane, you can run whatever different exhaust combinations you want for the turbo. The compression test on the 2.5 didn't go well. Well, it went well because we got lots of information, but 2 of the 4 holes are dead. It depends on if you're worried about the spray pattern on the injector. We normally space the top side of the feed side of the injector. Yeah, you can run the, if you imagine this manifold with a mount for the turbo, and then you just run the exhaust from that manifold over into this manifold, that's kind of what lots of turbo stuff was. I mean, for a V8, a 5XL, only if you had 5 shirts. It's dead, all the way dead. I can't even put compression in it. So, which makes me want to take off the valve cover and see if the valves are hung open or rockers are, well, if the rockers are broken, it would be closed all the way. I just want to make sure that they're going up and down. Yeah, it could have, now the 2 cylinders are not adjacent. It's 2 and 4 that are bad. So they're not, I don't have a gasket blown out between 2, which we've seen before, obviously. No, the 2 are not dead, are not next to each other. Draw-through turbos are not popular because you're feeding fuel through the turbo, and any kind of liquid through the blade and stuff is not a good idea. 600 horsepower Dulcich ported Edelbrock 360 has naturally aspirated, super lightweight short block, and Chinese Weber carbs. I don't know. I don't know how much those heads flowed. I don't remember whether they went over 300 or not. Yeah, clear headers would be cool. If you've taken a look at some of the stuff that I've posted, they get glowing, really, really bright orange hot. And they get almost translucent. You can almost see the exhaust flowing through them. I didn't look on it through it with the borescope. I have one of those apps for my phone too. I have one of the things that I can look in there, but I didn't bring it. It needs to come apart anyway. What I'm going to do is one test I've been wanting to do for, I don't know, a decade or 2 is I want to put clear panels on the oil pan. So I want to be able to see what's going on in there. I want to go see the chaos. We didn't do a compression test. I did a leak down test because I didn't want to crank it over because just in case something was really, really broke inside there. And it's number 2 and number 4, and there was no, it wouldn't take any pressure at all. It wouldn't take any, airflow. The other ones are pretty good. One of them was 8 and one of them was 11%. Xmoto, a TI trim could make 1,000 horsepower. So you can, there's a lot of blower there. And I think if I did the, I watched Garage 54 stuff. I think that's pretty cool stuff. And if I made the pan like really deep with a big pickup down there, we could kind of see, I think we would get, I'm hoping we could get the clear sections, because I want to do multiple sections, enough that we could kind of see what's going on. I think if the tighter the pan is, the more problematic that's going to be. Dan, so you ran plexiglass windows and oil pans years ago. It looks crazy. That's what people don't realize. When the crank is spinning, like all of this stuff is attached to the outer edge of it, and it's all spinning together. That's why Dan was talking about using crank scrapers. That's why they work, because they shear that oil off. And that's the other reason that kickouts in the pan work too, is because it gets all the oil going. And if that oil can go up into that ledge in the kickout, it goes up and comes back down. It doesn't continue to go around with the crankshaft. It actually works pretty good. Yeah, pull the valve cover and hit them with a hammer, because sometimes it gets stuck. Stuff gets in there. Yeah, see if the hone will work. Just bought a 73 C20 with an LS9. That's a good motor. Should I swap the Gen 4 LS9 to keep it numbers matching? So you can do the resto on your 73? So what is all the Ed Peters stuff? You want to get it in the manifold, not in front of the throttle body. The LS has a windage tray on it that works pretty well, but it would be interesting to see if a crank scraper did even more. Yeah, I've been watching the boosted voice stuff. A 4-liter Jeep would be, it's on the list, but I don't know when. That's going to be a long ways down the line. Although Uncle Tony reached out to me about doing a turbo Jeep motor, and so I might do something with him, even if I just tell him what he needs to do on the turbo stuff. Opening up the oil pump hole in the block. Running half the water pump vanes. Okay. Have you ever wrapped a hone with fine sandpaper for different cylinder finishes? I haven't ever tried that. Oh, so we have a slide-in cone at the end of the intake manifold. Comet unstacks rings. How do you feel about the OptiSpark on the LT1? I haven't ever run one for a long period of time, and the only times that we have run one, it worked just fine. Yeah, send me a Rocket or Cord. Send me a list of them and let me know what they are, because if they're like low buck and cheap and easy, we can try them and actually kind of put them to rest. And that some of those might be really good to do NA, because you know, if we get 2 horsepower, 2 from 100 is a pretty good amount. 2 from 200 is not very good. That's within the range of repeatability. When are you going to flip the pistons? Yeah, we need to do that. From the sunburn state. The coatings would be much harder because that requires disassembly of the motor. I hope flipping the pistons adds 20 horsepower. I would need to go do an ABA test if I saw 20 horsepower. Garrett, thanks, man. Thanks for watching. Yeah, if you could put a list together, that would be interesting. I'd like to try some of that stuff. And I'm also, somebody reached out today with naturally aspirated long tube headers and a couple of things. So that would be good to try that, because I do want to try some of these tests on the 2.2 or the 2.5. I want to try them NA also. Yeah, Tim, that's one of the things that I'm concerned about, and that's why I offered to just tell him what turbo to use and stuff. Because if I was putting it together and making it run, I would do it on the dyno and make it work, and then you know, make boosted power. It won't be hard at all. I think he just wants to take a stock Jeep and put a turbo on it, and that should be fairly easy. 360 Magnum, will you do a bone stock run? That's what this is right here. So that's as close to stock. I don't have the factory air box on it. I don't have all the cats and all that stuff. So it is what this is right here. James, you did a ring gap LY6 to be starting up tomorrow. Good, let me know after you run boost on it. The book says friction reduction. Shouldn't that be equate to power though? Turbo Iron Duke. I've never done one of those. Ported stock exhaust manifold. Yeah, that's right. That was on the list of stuff. I remember reading about that. And then Rocket, I also saw that guys were porting the different sections, port matching the sections of the two-piece manifolds together, and then port matching maybe the one piece to the head. And somebody reached out today about some different factory heads that have different port sizes on them as well. I don't have any 1UZ content. I would like to, though. Yeah, it's based on the, Sean, it's based on the pin offset. I don't know about the type of coating that would be best for boost applications. Most guys do a ceramic coating. Best head for the 5.9, I don't know. Richard, I'm curious, when you do camshafts for dyno pulls, do you do a break-in routine before running it? Not on roller cams, we don't. We put the cam in and we run it. The roller cam doesn't really need a break-in. On flat tappet cams you do, and if we run flat tappet cam tests, which we haven't done for a long time, kind of for that reason. But when we do that, we do a break-in on each one of the cams. Yeah, Aaron, I would imagine on stock tired valve springs that valve float is going to be pretty early on this thing. And I would imagine, given this manifold and the camshaft and stuff, that it's probably not going to make peak power anywhere above 5,000. Yeah, the 655 head is the one that he was talking about. See, the final, that's what I was wondering. Piston coatings, like the thermal barrier stuff, keeps the heat out of the piston, but is that going to make it more prone to detonation? I know that a lot of the cup guys and stuff, they'll do a DLC coating on the pin because it's a wear thing. They'll do anti-friction coatings on the skirts, which we know helps. But on the tops of them, I just don't. I don't know what the optimum thing is. Excuse me, sir. Did you test the turn and switch cylinders? I don't know what the turn and switch cylinders is. I don't know what that refers to. Frank, I don't know why drag racing isn't using the electric turbo stuff. Maybe it's still a cost thing. Do you have that big alloy bracket that bolts to the front of the Magnum so you can drive, or the Magnum so you can drive the water pump? I do not. And in fact, much like the 4200, I probably had it and bought it and took it off and then threw it away, and now I have to go back and buy it again. So that's what a good shopper I am. I can see the throttle body and manifold on the stock sitting on the dyno over your shoulder. This one right here? I do have the stock throttle body. I have the manifold, but I don't have the air intake assembly though. Yeah, Sean, and it's more than just the 318. The Fords were like that. The 360s were like that. I'm sure the 340s were like that. Yeah, on a Hulk is talking about Clay Milliken and his crew chief talking about cutting the tops of top fuel pistons, which are, I think they probably would do that for like a strength issue because they don't really care about heat transfer so much. I don't have any 3.9 Magnum stuff planned. And the flipping piston probably will go viral. I don't know about the electric turbo thing. I just don't know about it's always about the power source for that. Yeah, the flat tappets have issues, and a lot of lifters have issues also. And part of the lifter thing is the fact that they're not allowed to ship them with oil in them anymore, so you can't store them with oil. So what happens is that if they're sitting for long periods of time, they actually rust. And so what we've experienced sometimes, and Steve was telling me about on the dyno, is that they'll have stuff running, and then all of a sudden it'll lose a hole. And what happens is the plunger and the lifter on hydraulic stuff sticks down at the bottom of the bore, and so it gets unhappy. And sometimes you can tap it and it'll come back, but the problem is after you do that, you think, okay, well, is it going to do it again? And that seems to be a problem. And I don't know if that's the only issue, but I know that that's one of them. Is it possible to put the line going to the wastegate in front of the throttle body also? You can, but I don't know why you would. Because what will happen is it will open up earlier because you'll get more boost there than you will in the manifold. Some guys hook it up to the right at the turbo. They hook up their controllers there. So you have a stock 318, and what year is the 318? So when 1390 is at 100 on 31-inch tires with 11 pounds of boost. Good. Oh, Kyle, so the 5.2 for these, I know that these heads will be cracked. I was talking to the machine shop about that. So I think that the 2.2 stuff is like that. Maybe the slant 6 as well. What is your opinion on roller bearing probably roller bearing camshafts, I think. I've never used them. I know that what Steve has done tests on a few motors that have them, like very high-end drag race stuff, but I've never used them on anything that I've done. Yeah, Henry, I've talked to Uncle Tony at length. We spoke for 3 or 4 hours, and that was one of the topics. So we got coatings, armor glide, armor plating, armor fit, and armor X. I honestly, Aaron, I don't know if it would be a good idea to take them apart and clean them and lube them. I definitely would think about doing that if you were going to store them for any length of time. Whenever we put a motor together that's new, we always prime it before we run it. And when we're priming it, part of the priming procedure, because we want to get oil up to all the lifters before we would try to start it, not just priming it and seeing oil pressure on the gauge. And when we're doing that, we spin the motor around to get the push rods and lifters and rockers in different positions, because as we do that, then we start seeing oil in some of them. So we almost always spin the motor by hand, and because we don't spin it with the dyno while we're priming it, and it works really well. So you have somebody that did DYNO standalone on a Dodge Turbo. Armor plates for detonation resistance and heat reflection. That would be a good combination. So Casey, the Harley shop was all out of air coolant for your 68 VW. Yes, we do need more 4200 stuff. There's a lot of difference between the Magnum and the LA. They have similar displacements and bore spacing and all that, but the heads are different. The roller cams, the intake manifolds are different. If I put a BBK throttle body on my 99 F-150 462 valve, will I notice a difference in gas mileage? It may go down. It's probably not going to go up. I think it's a 568 trans, and I'm not sure what, he didn't remember what limited slip it has. Rocket, I don't know. We were trying to look at what the input was for that factory computer. We were hoping that it was either a 5-volt or a 12-volt reference, but let me know if you know what that is. I have not done any variable vane turbos other than not testing it directly on the dyno, other than running them on the chassis dyno. Uncle Tony hates widebands. Why would anybody hate more information? I don't know if JE does. I can't remember the last pistons that we got. We have gotten coated pistons before that came that way, but I don't remember who they were from. You can throw a VW distributor into the 2.5. Can we run an NA distributor on the, and is the NA distributor different than the turbo distributor is? Like, can we run, is the distributor on the carbureted 2.2? Will that have a different reference voltage than the turbo one? I don't know about the 5.9 turbo stuff. I want to run a turbo on it right now. I just would like to get it running. Oh, they won't interchange? Okay. So, Sean, you're saying that all of them are the same. I'm getting conflicting information here. Turbo has a 2-plug HEP TBI 1-plug. Is it possible to run an Hei distributor without an ignition box or ECU? Yes, it is. That we run HEIs all the time on small blocks. The NA Hall effect has 1 pickup on it. The turbo has 2. 82 has a shorter, 85 earlier has shorter distributor. They change relectors and sensors. Well, all we need is a distributor that we can hook up to the Holly. And we may have to put a crankshaft on it, I guess, on the front. Yeah, the HEI is ready to run. It has a coil in it already, and it doesn't need an ignition amplifier because it has a fairly hot coil, especially for any kind of street motor. Yeah, these are definitely Hall effect. Yeah, the Holly will accept a few different patterns. So all we need is that 4X pattern is fine. That's in the distributor, as long as the input voltage into the distributor is either 5 volts or 12 volts. Then the Holly, then we'll work with the Holly. When you port the 2V 2.2 2.5 head, the intake manifold becomes the restriction. Oh, the relector produces a different wave. Okay. I think that didn't they run HEIs with flat tappet cams before they went over to roller stuff, or was the HEI after the roller stuff on the small blocks? Richard, do you need a set of aftermarket heads to run? I think I have guys that will supply heads, so I don't think that's a problem. Holly is working on a self-tuning ECM that will never need to tune. I remember somebody came into West Tech and was talking to the guys that do the tuning here on the chassis dyno, and said, "Yeah, we've got these self-learn ECUs. You guys are going to be put out of business." And we're thinking, yeah, that'll probably happen. We can use the Mega Squirt, but I don't have a harness for it. We have a harness for the Holly already. I have diagrams for it. All I need are Eric just wants to know what the reference voltage is. Hi, Richard. Your favorite big block cam work with my 502 Ramjet? Yeah, take a look at the cam that's in it. I would want it to be a significant jump over what's there. I don't know how big that cam is that's in it already. Yeah, so there should be HEIs out there that are designed for flat tappet cams. If that's what you have, then you use the gear that's on there for the early flat tappet stuff. We don't have any problem running this on the Holly. That will be easy. We have an MSD distributor in it, so that will work just fine. The one that I was curious about was the 2.2. Richard, is it possible to get a more precise tune if you have a wideband O2 sensor on each exhaust runner on a direct port fuel injection? Yes, it is, as long as you can do individual cylinder trim. And I have a video up on that, and it shows you how much we were able to get. You're not going to get a lot in power, but you will get a lot in safety, though. McLean Racing, I think the 2.2 Chrysler Hall effect reference voltage is 8 or 9 volts. Yeah, so that would kind of be weird. Mark, that's what we're going to do. We're going to try 12 or try 5 and then try 12 and see what happens. Recommendations on twins: 521 big block port, 14 to 1, 14 and a half to 1 compression, 800 horsepower NA. The goal is like 1200 horsepower. You want twins on that? I think I would do twin S475s for that size motor. Could use a resistor to pull the voltage down. Okay, I can talk to Eric about that. Any idea why one's caliber, I'm sure you mean cylinder, on a V8 with a carbon dual plane would have excessive carbon buildup? One piston and plug. My wideband says about 13 to 1. But you might not be 13 to 1 in that cylinder, and that wouldn't be unusual for a dual plane to have a big variance in cylinder air fuel. Bruce, when you tune an engine on the dyno for maximum power, is there a different tune for economy? Well, you're not trying to get economy at wide open throttle. So when we're trying to make maximum power, we're at wide open throttle. If you're trying to get maximum economy, you're cruising the thing at very light throttle openings and very low power output. So that's where you do the tuning for economy. In some instances, like guys that run endurance racing, they're tuning for brake specific fuel consumption. So not only do they want to make the power that they're making, but they want to make that power with the least amount of fuel so that when they're racing, they can go longer between longer fuel stints before they have to refill. Joe, I don't know if that will tell you but I'm pretty sure it's at the 8 or 9 that people were talking about. Yes, Mark, the tune file. Yeah, James, if you're running an LY6, a cammed LY6 on 20 pounds, it's going to make a lot of power. Tuning for fuel, mile per gallon, and power. You're actually not looking at a throttle position. You're probably going to be looking at a kPa reading. And those two things might be linked, but you can change the load even at the same throttle angle, and you would change the kPa by going up a hill, for instance. But then RPM would change. What would you set max timing to on a stock LS1? Most of the LS motors that we run here run best at 29 degrees of total timing. If it's out on the street, a lot of guys run less than that, just because they're running it hotter and you don't have a good cold air and a lot of other things. So it might be a little less on the street. Okay, guys, I got to get going. An hour and a half. Why are you keeping me so late? I got stuff to do. Thank you guys for showing up. I will see you all tomorrow, hopefully with some, let's make some noise over here on the 360. See you guys.